Good morning, everyone. This meeting is called to order. Mr. Trobman, has anyone signed up for public comment? Thank you very much. Good morning, Ms. Gonzalez.
Good morning.
Let's see, I'm showing we have no cases to reconsider under agenda item 3.
That is correct. There are no cases under agenda item 3.
Thank you. Let's look at tax liability cases under agenda item 4. Nope, no tax cases on docket 24.
That is correct. There are no tax cases on docket 20.
No fair housing cases for agenda item 5.
Correct. No fair housing cases on docket 24.
Now, under agenda item 6, we have no wage claim cases on docket 24 pulled for additional discussion.
There are no cases pulled for additional discussion. However, there are additional cases to be voted. You should have received the short form dissent list.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on docket 24.
I second the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected in the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 24.
I concur with Chairman's motion, except for those cases on which I am dissenting, as reflected on wage claim short form dissent list for docket 24.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted. Let's move to agenda item 7, in consideration of unemployment insurance cases on docket 24. Please proceed when you're ready.
You're ready.
Case number 298-1566. Commissioner Dimerson.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant left work on an approved leave to take care of her child who had COVID. The claimant was not working or being paid at the time she filed her initial claim, so the claimant had a valid claim. However, the claimant was approved for leave by the employer in order to quarantine with her child, and the claimant had applied for and been granted FMLA. The claimant then quit by filing her claim on January 20th, 2021, despite the fact that the employer had approved the claimant's leave. Section 207.045E of the Act specifies that a medically verified illness of a minor child only prevents disqualification if the employer refused to allow the individual a reasonable amount of time off during the illness. Since the claimant was approved for leave during her child's illness, the claimant did not have good cause connected with the work for quitting. We should modify the AT decision, valid claim, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed, sever adequate response.
The AT decision is not supportable. By the time the claimant filed her initial claim for benefits, she had already stopped working for the employer and earning wages because she was caring for her daughter, who was sick with COVID-19. As the claimant was unemployed as a result of the illness of her minor child, the claimant left work for good cause. Reverse the AT, valid claim, no voluntary leaving, bill reimbursing employer, and void adequate response.
Modify the AT, valid claim, voluntary leaving, reimbursing employer not billed, sever adequate response.
Short form dissent.
Short form dissent. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Case number 304-9962. Commissioner Trevino.
While the employer's testimony that it did not receive the notice for the AT2 hearing was arguably sufficient to rebut the presumption of the receipt, the employer admitted that at the hearing that it had no idea why it missed the AT1 hearing. Accordingly, the employer failed to meet the standard of credible and persuasive testimony sufficient to rebut the presumption of the receipt of the AT1 hearing notice. As the employer failed to establish good cause for its non-appearance at the hearing, the employer's first petition to reopen should be denied. Modify the AT, good cause for AT2, no good cause for AT1, no misconduct, chargeback. In the alternative, we should rehear the case to further develop the record why the employer missed the first AT hearing.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision. Concerning good cause, the employer provided credible and consistent testimony that they did not receive the hearing notice for the AT2 hearing. Although the employer witness attempted to provide testimony about not receiving the AT1 hearing notice, the hearing officer interrupted and did not obtain relevant testimony on the issue. Since the employer did not receive the AT2 hearing notice, and because evidence is lacking about whether the employer received the AT1 notice, the commission should hold that the employer's testimony was credible and persuasive to rebut the presumption of receipt. Hence, the employer established good cause for missing the AT hearings. Concerning the job separation, the employer's policy prohibited subjecting children to harsh, abusive, and profane conduct. The claimant was terminated when she addressed the child using profane language. Since the claimant had a history of displaying poor attitude towards children, the claimant's final conduct was a mismanagement of her position of employment. As such, we should reverse the AT decision. The employer established good cause for missing the AT2 and AT1 hearings. Misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Reverse the AT, employer established good cause for AT1 and AT2, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Short form dissent.
Case number 3348595, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. On July 12th, 2022, the claimant left work due to a family emergency. She texted the president and informed a senior team member before leaving. Later that day, the claimant returned to the office and met with the president, who directed the claimant to take the rest of the week off to deal with the family emergency, despite the claimant's objections. The claimant was not a no-call, no-show on July 13th, 2022. On Sunday, July 17th, 2022, the president called the claimant and stated that the employer was no longer needed her services as a recruiter, but they were willing to put her on the client assignment. Whatever issues the employer had with the attendance or the performance did not rise to the level of misconduct because the employer was willing to place her with their clients. During that phone call, the claimant immediately reported her availability for other work, and there was no discussion of pay, and there was a discussion of pay rates and willing to accept. The employer's policy did not dictate the way the employees report their availability. The claimant fulfilled the employer's requirement to immediately report her availability, and the employer failed to offer the claimant any further work. As such, she was laid off due to lack of work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, void chargeback.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. Although the claimant received previous warnings for attendance, she continued to violate the employer's expectations by leaving the workplace and thereafter becoming a no-call, no-show. Since the claimant was aware of the employer's job expectations, but thereafter violated the employer's rule by failing to adequately inform the employer about her absence, the claimant mismanaged her position of employment. As such, we should affirm the AT decision. Misconduct, void the chargeback ruling.
Affirm the AT, misconduct, void chargeback.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Short form dissent.
Thank you.
Case number 3352222, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant denied under oath that she gave customers beer in exchange for cash. While the employer alleged to have videos of 2 incidents, they did not produce this evidence and they did not show the claimant the videos, and she could not adequately respond to the allegations. While the employer is a cashless business, employees are allowed to accept cash tips from customers. If the employer system is down, employees can comp customers on a case-by-case basis. Once, when the system was down, the manager permitted the claimant to comp the customer's purchases, and the claimant had no control over the customers leaving cash tips. The claimant routinely covers receipts and cash tips with a towel to keep them from getting wet. As such, the employer presented insufficient evidence that the claimant violated the employer's policies or committed theft. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, void adequate response.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. The preponderance of evidence establishes that the claimant engaged in activity that violated the employer's cash policy. Furthermore, during the rehearing for this case, the claimant was repeatedly asked about the first of the 2 transactions in question in this case. However, the claimant's testimony indicates that she always referred to the second transaction. As such, the employer's evidence should be viewed as more credible. We should therefore modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback, sever the adequate response.
Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, void adequate response.
Short form dissent.
I have your short form dissent.
Thank you.
Case number 3386560, Commissioner Trevino.
The AT decision should be modified. The evidence in this record established the claimant was a single parent and quit to care for her minor child who had a severe or serious medical condition. She had already exhausted all of her available leave to her and was not eligible for further leave under FMLA. As the claimant's separation was due to a medically verifiable illness of her minor child, the claimant should be awarded benefits without disqualification, and the employer's account should remain protected from chargeback. Modify the AT, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback, MVI.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. The claimant quit due to her child's medical issue. The claimant never mentioned this medical issue to the employer. Moreover, it does not appear that a medical professional advised the claimant to quit due to her child's medical issue. As such, the claimant quit without work-connected good cause. We should therefore affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
I have your short form dissent.
Thank you.
Case number 3398267, Commissioner Demerson.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant worked for the employer, a temporary help firm, and was informed on Friday, September the 9th, 2022, that his assignment had ended. The claimant was specifically instructed to call the employer on September the 12th, 2022, to report for reassignment. The claimant did not report for reassignment until September 13th, 2022. Although the employer's policy provided that employees had 2 working days to report for reassignment, the claimant had been specifically instructed to call the employer on September the 12th, 2022. Since the claimant failed to report as instructed, he is considered to have quit without good cause connected with the work. And we should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant's temporary assignment ended on a Friday, and the employer's policy specifies that the claimant must request a new assignment within 2 business days of the assignment ending. The claimant contacted the employer requesting a new assignment on the following Tuesday, which is consistent with the employer's policy. The claimant was therefore laid off when the employer told him that there was no more work available on that Tuesday. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Short form dissent.
I have your short form dissent.
Thank you.
Case number 3425720, Commissioner Trevino.
The decision is not correct. The employer discharged the claimant for clocking in from lunch on her phone 21 minutes before she returned to the employer's main building. However, the claimant consistently testified that she was delayed in returning to the building because she was out running errands for the employer. Additionally, she testified that she notified the manager of the situation and was given permission to clock back in on her phone prior to returning to the building. The employer did not offer any testimony on the matter, never issued the claimant any prior warnings, and waited over 2 weeks from the incident to discharge the claimant. Therefore, the employer did not meet its burden of showing that the claimant was discharged for misconduct. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant was aware of the employer's strict timekeeping policies and that her time punches needed to match the badge records. By her admitted failure to follow the policy, the claimant mismanaged her position of employment. We should affirm the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, misconduct, no chargeback.
Short form dissent, ma'am.
Your short form dissent.
Thank you.
That is the conclusion of the full cases for docket 24. You should have received the short form dissent list for the remaining cases on docket 24.
I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 24, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting, as reflected on the UI short form dissent list for docket 24.
And I second the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I am dissenting as reflected in the UI short form dissent list for docket 24.
And I concur with Chairman's motion, except for those cases on which I am dissenting as reflected on UI short form dissent list for docket 24.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted. This brings us to the end of agenda items 3 through 7. We'll take a short recess.
Thank you.
All right, let's start back with agenda item 8, statewide initiatives for the fiscal year 2024 TWC itemized operating budget.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Cerna. For the record, Chris Nelson, Chief Financial Officer. As we prepare building the 2024 operating budget, we are bringing forward today one component of that, which is a statewide initiative budget. The document you have before you lays out the initiatives by childcare, TANF, statewide, WIOA, adult ed, and employment services, and also the groupings of veterans initiatives and middle skills. With childcare, because there's significant increases in childcare, there's some other documentation behind the schedule that justifies those increases. For most of the WIOA, adult ed, and TANF, they're by and large, they're largely minor decreases for the most part, some minor increases. And then one thing to note, I'll lay out on page 4, the yellow row 22, the commission statewide budget for 24 is 8.8 million. WIOA funds come with a 3-year life cycle. This 8.8 million is probably a mix of the new contract, new grant we're getting here in July, but it could include prior years. So I would recommend, if commissioners have ideas for using that, because of the contract and procurement timelines, you know, if you wait a year to make a decision on utilizing that funds, you got to build in sometimes a 6 to 9 month procurement life cycle. So you're into almost year 3 before you really get anything off the ground. So if you have ideas, I would definitely not wait until the end of next summer before you start coming up with ideas and working with staff on that. And the same for the adult ed. Adult ed is not quite 3 years, it's 2-year life cycle, but same thing. If you have ideas now or, you know, in the near future, bring that up and don't wait too much longer, because you've got to factor in that procurement life cycle as well. So those are my only comments. I think there's program staff here to answer any questions if there are any as well. But I'd be happy to answer any questions if I can.
All right, any comments or questions?
None for me.
None here.
I have an amendment. It's a short amendment. I'll explain it. It may or may not. I don't have any specific questions. I do have maybe one comment for you, Chris, and staff in general. We're getting, I think we're getting a lot more in-depth information about this budget as we consider it. So thank you to all the folks that work on that. I mean, they had our hopes up today that Irene was going to be talking, and now you're here. But no, in all seriousness, you guys, program staff, the amount of work that goes into this is obvious. We're getting really good data. I see that we're doing a much more of a deep dive relative to expenditure data, historical data, and I've had several conversations with programmatic staff about performance data, and there's a better trove of that. These are all really useful things to us here on the commission. What I would ask staff to do is to continue down that path and really position us for, the potential to sunset some programs, enhance some programs if the historicals really show us that. Your very gentle admonition to us to not take our sweet time about passing initiatives is well received as far as I'm concerned. And I think part of that is us understanding which of our existing programs are performing, which ones perhaps aren't performing as expected, and which ones might perform better with simply just a tweak to the way they perform. So I appreciate you saying that. I think you're right. When we come back around to this at the end, commissioners, I'm going to propose that we set up a work session sooner rather than later this summer, to talk about the statewide balances, what's left in WEOA, TANF, adult debt, and some other things. And for us to have a thoughtful discussion about where we see the commission heading and how those are performing. As Chris well knows, and Commissioner Demerson certainly do, and Commissioner Trevino, I think will understand this. I don't like us doing kind of one-off things in separate commission meetings. I like it when we can discuss through things and kind of understand how the agency is performing. We all have areas we feel strongly about based on the work we want to see done at the commission, and we need to accommodate all of that as best we can. And I don't think our interests here are competitive. And I think the budget supports several things that we want to do, but we can't just keep putting money into programs because historically we've put money into programs. Some may require more, some may require less, some may require none. And it's something we need to kind of talk about. So from a staff perspective, the short version of that is keep it up with the good data. This is really helpful. And it really kind of shows us where we are with performance of those and how we might want to enhance those or change those moving forward. All right. I do have an amendment. I want to get the motion on the table, which I can do, or Commissioner Demerson can do. I'm not married any one way. Any questions for Chris, though, before we put the motion on the table and start talking about
Chairman, I felt the general scolding as well from Chris and getting these things going forward, but a big supporter.
Advisement, not scope.
Right.
But I'm a big supporter of continuous improvement. I think what you're talking about is continuous improvement
Yes.
with our programs and the like. And so another question or comments from me.
All right. You want to do this motion, or I can do it? It's up to you.
Yeah, I'll do it.
You go right ahead.
Okay, I'm making sure that we have anything in there. You didn't put anything else in there, statewide initiatives, right? You just mentioned, okay. I move that we approve the statewide initiatives budget as part of the fiscal year 2024 operating budget as described in the summary documents and discussion paper as recommended today by staff.
And I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. So would there be any objection from any commissioner to consider amendment to reduce the apprenticeship line item by $650,000 and increasing the teacher externship line item by $600,000? I'm not asking you to approve the amendment. I'm asking you if there's any objection to us talking about that.
No objection from me.
No objection.
Hearing no objection, let me explain my amendment. At the apprenticeship line item, we've supplemented general revenue funds that the legislature has provided, about a little over $3 million in general revenue funds that they've been doing for quite a while. This is Chapter 133 funding. These are funds that federally registered apprenticeship programs can access to do some of the instructional costs related to their apprenticeships. We have been doing this supplement for a number of years now. I can see it back as far as like 2017, 2018. I think it actually predates that. That's just as far back as I can see. We, for a long time, did about $1 million. At some point in about 2017, it looks like the commission jumped that up to $1.65 million. We have year in, year out, some years more than others. We have expended about 67% of that over that time. I'm looking at how the commission's been operating. I'm looking at, frankly, the very real success of the apprenticeship program. And I'm weighing that out against the benefits that I believe that we're seeing from the teacher externship program. If you'll recall, we had 2 rounds of funding for that this year. I think moving that to $2 million, which is the effect of my amendment, it would take it from 1.4 million to $2 million. It would reduce the supplement to the Chapter 133 funding by an amount that sort of seems to be the amount that we haven't been spending on average. Some years are different than others. Take that same pot of money, move it over to externships to increase those teacher externships to a level that will allow us just to get to more schools. We're hearing more and more demand for the teacher externship from employers. And I don't think we're necessarily gonna short the apprenticeship program too much. If we find that we do, if we find that there's just this extremely increased demand for the Chapter 133 funds, I think there's time to revisit that, depending on what those contracts start looking like. That's my amendment. I would say one more thing. I'm committed to, at the appropriate time, to going back to the legislature and asking for an exceptional item increase to increase the Chapter 133 funds. I think it's warranted. I think that if performance continues along the same line that we've seen it, I think this commission would be warranted in asking for that exceptional item request at the next legislative session, particularly in light of some of the new money that's come to the industry recognized apprenticeship program. I think what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is I'd like for us to start moving the commission out of these supplementary funds for apprenticeship, put those funds into something that we're operating, and then make some more permanent decisions relative to Chapter 133 and call this to the attention of the legislature for an increase that way. That is my amendment. So my amendment would be I move to reduce the fiscal year 2024 apprenticeship line item to $1 million and increase the teacher externship line item to $2 million. That is the essence of my amendment. Certainly would welcome any discussion, and then I want to get a vote on this so that we can understand how we want to move forward with it.
Chairman, just to clarify, you're on page 4 and you're talking about row number 6 increasing by 650,000. That's track code 74046.
That is correct.
And decreasing row 20, track 79024 by 650K.
That is correct.
Okay.
So open for discussion.
Mhm.
All right, yeah. Chairman, so I think the mere fact that we're talking about the flexibility, that if in fact we find ourselves needing access to more activity in the apprenticeship route, then that's doable. And so if that amount of money on average has not been spent, and we know the importance and the excitement behind externship programs, it makes sense. We have a lot of flexibility in this regard, and the movement towards doing even more legislatively at some point in time begins to make sense. And so supplementing for apprenticeships is something that we've seen, but this is for employers. In my regard, those employers that are taking advantage of the programs, that's something that's important to them. But if we're not spending that money right now, we move it into the externship program. It does make sense.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've limited time visiting the workforce boards. I see the benefit of the teacher externship program. But I just asked for a little flexibility, like you had mentioned, Chairman, if we do see a need to move money back to apprenticeships or whatever, that we can have that discussion when that comes up.
So would there be an objection to the amendment?
None for me.
And none for me.
There's no objection. We'll put that amendment in place. Are there any other amendments that we should consider? Let's then consider the amended motion. So the amended motion would be Commissioner Demerson's motion to accept staff's recommendations amended by amendment on apprenticeship and on teacher externships. Is there any further discussion on the amended motion?
None here.
None here.
The only discussion I would have is one more time. Great job, guys. This budget cycle is complicated. It's difficult. It's a lot of moving parts. I appreciate everything that went into it. Appreciate all the work that you did. Having said that, then is there any objection to the amended motion?
None here.
None here.
No objection. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Let's
And-
move to
and Chairman,
agenda item
just-
8B.
Just to remind
Yes.
that again, since you brought up the future legislative cycle, about this time next year, we will be building our next LAR. So keep that in mind as well.
Sure, I'm gonna ask Chris, where's Irene?
That is a good question. She was scheduled to present because I was out last week, but when they moved this, she politely asked if I was going to present today. And I said, sure.
So she
present.
gently scolded you into coming here to the meeting.
Yes.
I mean, this is a legitimate line of inquiry Commissioner Demerson has uncovered.
Chairman and Commissioner Trevino, it was funny because when we asked Irene, where's Chris? Ed had, I think, told me Chris is in Dallas or something like that. And Irene said Chris is here. You were at two places at that time. So
Let the record reflect that Mr. Cerna is providing clarifying comments as to the whereabouts of Chris Nelson.
keep Chris here. So
Chris, would you like to talk about agenda item 8B, child care statewide initiatives?
I would, but I don't know if I have any additional comments.
All right. Any discussion on child care initiatives?
not for me.
And none for me.
All right. I think we do need a motion on this though, or did your original motion cover childcare as well?
So the motion you took, I
Yeah,
believe,
took
just
care.
covered everything that was in the schedule. The childcare documentation is supporting documentation for those increases.
I would agree. I would agree that Commissioner Demerson's original budget covered the childcare as well. He said the overall fiscal 2024 operating budget is described by staff. So,
That's right.
all right, any additional discussion since I opened the door? None. I think our motion covered both documents. I think we're good to go on that. I think staff has everything that they need.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Everybody's agreed? Thank
Yes.
you. Let's see here. I do not see a legislative report lurking in the back. Is there an executive director's report today?
No, sir, there's not.
I have one request for you, Mr. Cerna. Coming out of the regular session, several new programs were created. And I think there were some statutory changes to some other programs. I would ask staff to take a look at our rulemaking process and study the efficiency of that process and report back to the commission at your first available opportunity on any improvements we can make to the efficiency of our rulemaking process. And any efforts to speed that up would be much appreciated by this commissioner, and I suspect some others as well, although I won't speak for them.
We'll do that as quickly as possible. Speaking of speeding things up, since we do have several rules that we need to get in place. So if we're going to improve the process, we'll want to process those rules under that improved process. So we'll come back as quick as possible within the next week or so.
Is there any other order of business come before the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I too want to, first of all, I think speed and efficiency is important. And so that, you know, I've already spoke on continuous improvements. And if we can do anything in the rulemaking process, then let's go for it. With the advent of technology and the like, do what we can to make it that much better. In regards to the initiative esports, I've been in conversations with the governor's film and music office, but they have a gaming component as well. And so esports is something that's huge here in Texas. And so I may, and becoming even bigger in the world, and I may circle back, Ed, asking for a discussion paper in regards to initiatives around esports. Again, still in conversations right now, but I'll bring that forward as I get more additional information.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
No comments.
Commissioner Trevino?
No comments. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I second the motion to adjourn.
And I think,
Before you adjourn,
yes,
real quick, I do wanted to introduce an intern that we have on board, Josh Devenish. Josh, if you stand, Josh is going to be taking over for Brandy when she leaves in July, but Josh is a senior at Southwest Texas State University there in San Marcos, and delighted to have him on board.
well, welcome him. Commissioner, I often tell folks that I wish that everybody sitting in the room could see what we see as you were talking and introducing this wonderful addition to your crew. I noticed that the young lady that was exiting gave a very significant goodbye. That means we did it right. She's ready. She's learned all she can learn and she's ready to move. So
Getting out of here, so.
I think that's wonderful. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Is there any further comment? We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.